So this is a huge project. It adds so many new features to VoidShell. If you're unfamiliar, VoidShell is similar to something like Webman Mod for the PS3. It runs a web server on the PS5, which has a web panel that you can access from any device on the same network as your PS5 to be able to remotely run functions on the console. And it's all available in one place through this web panel. It is super useful. And I really want to show you guys how to get things set up here with VoidShell, because I think I will be using this for future tutorials because it makes things a lot more convenient to be able to do a lot of things on the PS5 for my future videos. So I definitely recommend getting this set up here. And of course, once I show you how to set it up, we'll go over a lot of the new features that have been added in this version, but it might be quite a long video because there's just been so much stuff added to this compared to the previous version. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at how we get this set up. So first things first, we want to download it from Void Whisper's Ko-Fi page. The link will be in the description. There'll be 3 files. You want to download at least the 2 zip files. One is the zip file for the package file, and the other one is for the payload. So download those over to your computer. If you want to be able to use the cheats as well and get the cheats installed and working through VoidShell, you can also go to the PS5 cheats repo and download the main zip file here for the cheats. And also, of course, I recommend installing Nano DNS for the PS5 so that you can get connected to the internet while blocking connections to Sony servers to prevent you from accidentally updating. It's the safest way, I believe, to connect to the internet on the PS5 while avoiding updates. So I would also make sure that you get that as well. And also, of course, if you are loading the jailbreak through the YouTube jailbreak autoloader or the Lua Core autoloader or the Blu-ray drive autoloader, then you're going to want to go ahead and download the Y2JB update.zip file here as well for the autoload files. Okay, so now we just want to grab ourselves a USB drive that's formatted in exFAT or FAT32 format. Go into that USB drive. I already have a homebrew folder that contains a couple of PS5 game dumps just for testing the shadow mount functionality of VoidShell, but you don't have to have anything in the USB drive yet. But what we're going to do is simply open up the Y2JB update.zip file and extract the PS5 autoloader folder into the root of that USB drive, then open up voidshell.zip and extract the voidshell.elf file also into that folder. Then if we go into PS5 autoloader, we're going to open up the autoload.txt file, and then we can simply delete all of the text that's in here and simply rename voidshell.elf, copy the file name, and paste it in as the first payload to load in your autoload.txt, and then simply save the file. And that's really the only file that we need to load is VoidShell. You don't need to load any other files, just VoidShell, because VoidShell contains kstuff lite and it will auto load it. You could also add etahen potentially as the first payload to load, or etahen.bin, and load etahen first and then VoidShell. I'm not sure how compatible they are with each other yet, but you don't want to use etahen version 2.5 with this because etahen version 2.5b uses kstuff regular and VoidShell uses kstuff lite, so that could cause some conflicts. So if you are going to try and load this with etahen, wait for the full release of etahen version 2.6b. If it's not out yet, which it's not out right now, I'm just going to load VoidShell standalone. So that is basically how we do that. We can delete the FTP server here because all of the other payloads we can load using VoidShell's autoloader. So we only need to load VoidShell from the PS5 autoloader for our jailbreak. So that's all we need to do there. So I'm going to go ahead and eject my USB drive and plug it in to my PS5. Okay, so back onto the PlayStation 5, we're going to load the jailbreak with the USB drive plugged into our PS5. So I'm going to use the YouTube jailbreak autoloader to run the jailbreak, but you can use again the Lua Core autoloader with the Star Wars Racer Revenge game if you're on a higher firmware, or of course the Blu-ray drive autoloader if you've unlocked the Blu-ray drive, whichever exploit you're using. And it will now run our VoidShell payload. So there we go, VoidShell 3.0 beta starting. Web UI is ready, and you can see it's already detected the 2 game dumps that I put on the USB drive, and it's added them already. So you can see it's got that same shadow mount functionality of adding our game dumps. So that seems to be working fine. So now let's take a look at the web panel. So if we go into our settings, we go to our network settings, set up an internet connection. We can press options on our registered network, go to advanced settings, and then just make sure you set the DNS, of course, to manual, and set the primary DNS to 127.0.0.1. That will block all connections to the internet. but it will allow a network connection so that you'll be able to access the web panel. So you will get that error message saying that it failed to connect to your registered network. But if we check by going to System Software Console Information, you can see we do have an IPv4 address, which means we are connected to our network. So now all we need to do is go to that IP address there on a web browser that is connected to the same network as the PS5. So in our URL bar of our internet browser, we just type in the IP address of the PS5 with :7007 for the port number and press enter. And that should take us over to VoidShell. So that will take us over to the home page where we can launch our games. We can filter for just PS5 or PS4 games or all of your applications. You've got recently played applications, your temperatures displayed, and your system uptime. Now, there are a few additional setup steps that we need to do before we have this fully installed. So if we go into our files, we have the file commander, which allows us to copy files between the console and our device. So I can take the PS5 autoloader folder and select it, and then copy that over to the data folder on the hard drive. That way, we don't need to have the USB drive plugged in when we next load the jailbreak. To load VoidShell, it will just load the one that's now copied to the data folder on the hard drive. So it's as simple as that to copy the files over. We can also go into the VoidShell folder on the hard drive and then go into the cheats folder to upload our cheats. So to upload the cheats, we just click this button here to upload a folder. Then we just select our PS5 cheats folder and then each one of the cheat folders. So of course we have JSON cheats, MC4 cheats, and SHN cheats. So I'll select the JSON folder first, and then I'll just repeat the process with the other cheat folders for MC4 and SHN to get those uploaded too. Okay, now that I have the folders uploaded, I can also upload files here because for the cheats, you also need the text files. So the JSON text, MC4 text, and SHN text, which I believe contains the hashes. So we also want to have those uploaded as well, and that'll have all of the cheats uploaded. Now, finally, one of the last things we need to do here is also upload the package file. So there is a package manager in VoidShell as well, allowing you to install package files directly onto the console. So we can select files or select a whole folder full of package files. So I'm just going to select files here. And then, of course, I'm going to go ahead and select the VoidShell version 3.pkg file. So when I go ahead and open this, it now installs the package file on the console. And as you can see, it is now successfully installed the package file. So if I go over here to the PS5, we can launch this. And this will allow us to access the web panel directly on the console itself. So if you want to perform any actions directly on the console without having to use another device, it is possible to load it here on the console itself. We'll just skip the tour and you can see we have the panel loaded up here. So we can access it here directly on the console as well as on another device. So if we switch back over to the computer, the last thing I want to do here is install the Nano DNS payload for our internet connection and system update blocking. So if we go into the payloads section, you can also add payloads here into the Payload Manager. You can upload an ELF or bin file. So we'll upload our Nano DNS and that will add it here. So that adds the payload in here. And then of course you can also just inject the payload directly by clicking Run Now, and that will send it over to the console. And you can see that we do in fact have the payload running. And that will allow an internet connection through a local proxy while also blocking all of the connections to Sony servers to prevent system updates. It's the safest way to get connected to the internet on your PS5. And the advantage of this as well is you can also enable it on boot so that when VoidShell is loaded, it will automatically run this payload. And you can do the same with many other payloads, add any additional payloads in here. You can also edit the load order of when each payload is loaded and what order they're loaded in, and also add custom delays, so it may wait a certain number of seconds before loading the next payload. You have all of those options built in. Now, the last thing that we can do here, and this is optional, but you can also add additional information for your games in the home menu. So when I select a game like Bloodborne here, you can see it says add a RAWG API key in settings to see the ratings and descriptions. So if you want more information, you can add that API key. So again, this is optional, but it is nice to have. So if you head to rawg.io/API docs and get API key, it does require you to make a free account on this website and enter some basic information, and then it will give you the API key. Once you have that API key, you can then head over to the settings page on VoidShell, scroll down to RAWG API key and paste it in here, and then click test key, and it should say that the key is all good. So checking key, there we go, looks valid. So now when we go back to the home page, we get more information. So Bloodborne now has a new background. If I select Bloodborne here, it'll give us a rating and when it was released, and it's got a description of the game now loaded. So it just gives you a little bit more information, makes it look a little bit nicer if you have that API key added, but it is not required. So that is the general setup done. Now let's go over some of the new features that have been added compared to previous versions. So for instance, of course, we still have the ability to launch our games directly from within here. I can just click play Dead Space, for instance, and that will launch Dead Space on the console. You can see it says cheats are available for this game, so it loads the cheat engine. And it also, of course, will disable K-Stuff automatically once the game is loaded. So if I load up into the game here, I can also enable the cheats. So up here with Dead Space, we have this little controller icon, which is the cheats. If I click that, that brings up the cheat menu. And then I can add different cheats to the game. Like let's activate infinite ammo / stasis. So I'll turn that on. It applies the cheat. And now we can see if that works in game. So if I just switch back over, full screen this, we can go ahead and try and shoot our gun. And you can see my ammo's not going down. We still have 8 rounds here in the weapon. And I'm firing and the ammo is not going down. And then of course, if I go ahead and just disable infinite ammo, it should now go down. As you can see, the ammo is now reducing. So yeah, that is the basic idea. Now, not all the cheats work, I've noticed. So there might still be some issues, maybe with the master code implementation for the cheats. I'm not sure, but I have noticed that quite a few games, a lot of the cheats don't seem to work, only certain ones. So that might be something that needs to be fixed here in a future version. But yeah, that's the general idea. You can also remotely close the game now as well. I can just click this X button to close game. And there we go. It closes it remotely on the console as well, which is awesome. You also have the ability to remotely dump your games. So for Bloodborne, for instance, I can select it and then select the dump option. And then it gives me a lot of additional, options to where I want to dump the game to. If I want to enable backports and change the minimum SDK version, decide for the PS4 games if I want to split it into the game and the update into separate folders to create separate package files for the game and the update. So it has all of that, details all added there that you can customize. So all of those options, I'll just go ahead and leave it on default for now and start the dump. And that will go ahead and dump Bloodborne over to my USB drive. So it launches the game automatically for us here. And there it goes. PS5 app dumper in VoidShell has been initialized. We get the information on the web panel showing the progress of dumping the game. And then it's also showing us the progress here on the console as well, giving us the percentage and how many gigabytes have been transferred out of the total. Okay, and there we go. You can see it is now complete. And that is the game successfully dumped. And then we can just close it once we're done. So yeah, some pretty awesome features that are built in there. There's a lot more stuff also to cover. So we also have an avatar changer. So we can, of course, change our avatar and rename our profile. So if I select an image for one of my accounts here, I can just select an image. I'll take my YouTube icon, add it in. And then, of course, I can also change the zoom, have it zoom in more, change the X and Y axis so I can get it just the way I like it. And then once you have it the way you want, you can apply it. You can also change the username. So I'll go ahead and change it from user1 to modded warfare. And that should do. I'll click rename and then apply to user1. It does need a reboot to be properly applied, I believe. But as you can see, it is now done. So reboot to apply. So you've got that. Then in the settings, lots of different options in the settings here. I'm not going to retread old ground here by going over stuff that I've already covered in version 2.0. So we'll mostly just cover the new stuff here. So we have things like a save backup, so you can back up your save files for your games. You can also back up your config file for VoidShell, so you can restore it if it ever gets reset. You've also got system fan control, of course, where you can, adjust your fan speeds based on a temperature threshold. So you can apply that. You've got Sentinel Warden, which allows you to customize the pausing and unpausing of K-Stuff in many different ways. You've got paths and data, which is for VoidShell scanning for game dumps. You can change your scan locations, add additional locations to scan. There's Home Assistant integration that's now been added in this version. So if you have anything that's compatible with Home Assistant, you can interface with your PS5 through Home Assistant using this. And then you've also got the storage, which shows the utilization of all of your storage drives that are connected to the PS5. You also have the experimental section here, which allows you to enable things like exFAT image mounting and FFPKGs, the UFS image mounting, which is just another way of loading your PlayStation 5 game dumps, where they are stored inside an image file, so they're just one file, like a UFS2 image or an exFAT image, and you can load them like that if you enable those options. And of course, there's custom delays that you can edit. Remote play, so you can generate the pin code for remote play so that you can connect a remote device. So any remote play client application that needs the pin code is right there. You can just enter it to get connected to your console. It even gives you the account ID as like a base 64 string for some of the open source remote play clients like Chaki. So you have those options there as well. Offline account activation, so you can activate your accounts directly here from within VoidShell, and the ability to sync the clock as well. So if your clock is out of sync, you can pull the PS5 to see if there's any drift. You can see there's a lot of drift on my PS5, so the time is way off. So I can click Smart Sync to sync the clock with the correct time. So all of those options that have been added there as well. So that's VoidShell version 3.0 beta. Now bear in mind that this is a beta still, which means there may still be some things that don't work correctly. There may still be a few issues here and there. So don't be surprised if you do run into a few problems. And not all of the features will work across every firmware version. The majority of them should work across all the main firmwares, but there might be certain firmware versions where some experimental features might not work. So just bear that in mind. But anyway, definitely an awesome project. I'm looking forward to using this more in my upcoming tutorial series, where I'll be covering all of the great things you can do with a jailbroken PS5, and being able to have something like this where you can perform most of the things that you need on the PS5 all in one location is very, very useful, very handy. So I'm hoping to be using this primarily in the future. But that's going to do it here for this video. So hope you guys enjoyed this one or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, I'll hopefully see you guys